shocking statement by a CERN scientist. He says wind investment is disastrous, wind energy in other words. It's a sure failure with useless, costly, environmentally damaging infrastructure, he says. Wind power fails in every case, he says, adding that governments ignore overwhelming evidence of wind power's inadequacy and resort to dark and unsustainably unsubstantiated analysis. Oxford University professor of physics and mathematics, CERN researcher and Keble College fellow Wade Allison, in his short and comprehensive report on wind energy, states why the wind investment venture will fail on the whole while destroying economies, societies, and environments. He says wind power is failing in every case, and he adds that governments are ignoring overwhelming evidence of wind power's inadequacy, resorting to dark, unsustainable analysis. The report with Professor Allison's warnings was recently published by the Global Warming Policy Foundation. He notes that the energy provided by the sun is extremely weak and therefore cannot provide the energy to maintain even a small fraction of the world's population at an acceptable standard of living. A similar view was recently stated more dramatically by nuclear physicist Dr. Wallace Mannheimer. Costly infrastructure will prove useless and environmentally damaging, he says. He argued that the infrastructure around wind and solar will not only fail, but will cost trillions, wipe out large parts of the environment, and be completely unnecessary. In his work, Allison focuses on working out the numbers behind natural wind fluctuations. The full treatment is not complicated and can be reviewed from the above link here. It shows that that with a wind speed of 20 miles an hour, the power produced by a wind turbine is 600 watts per square meter at full efficiency. To deliver the same power as the Hinkley Point C nuclear plant, 3,200 million watts, would require 5.5 million square meters of turbine sweep area. It is noted that this should be completely unacceptable to those who care about birds and the environment. Of course, this concern does not seem to have been taken into account to date, as millions of bats and birds are estimated to be killed by onshore wind turbines every year. Meanwhile, off the coast of Massachusetts, work is about to begin on a giant wind farm with permits to distribute and likely injure nearly 1/10 of the population of the rare North Atlantic right whale. When variations in wind speed are factored into Allison's formula, wind performance becomes much worse. If the wind speed is halved, the available power is reduced by a factor of 8. Almost worse, he notes, if the wind speed doubles, the power delivered increases eightfold, and the turbine must be shut down for its own protection. If the effect of amplified fluctuations is dramatic, as shown in the chart, nominal installed capacity in the European Union and UK is in 2021, as shown by the brown dashing lines in the figure, was 236 gigawatts, with the highest daily output was only 103 gigawatts on March 26. The unreliability appears to have an even greater effect on the second graph depicting the wind created offshore in the UK in March of last year. For 8 days at the end of the month, electricity production dropped, possibly, Allison says, because the wind speed was cut in half. The daily loss of 8.8 gigawatts during the period was noted to be 1,000 times the capacity of the world's largest grid storage battery at Moss Landings in California. When it comes to the massive batteries needed to store renewable energy, Allison notes safety issues as well as mineral shortages. Batteries will never cover the failure of offshore wind farms, even for a week, and he points out that they can fail for much longer. Others have recently taken a closer look at the battery storage costs. American lawyer and mathematician Francis Menton, who runs the Manhattan Contrarian site, reviewed recent official cost reports and found that even under the most optimistic assumptions, the cost could be as high as a country's GDP. Under less optimistic assumptions, the cost of capital alone would be 15 times annual GDP. Last year, Associate Professor Simon Michaud warned the Finnish government that there were not enough minerals in the world to supply, plus all batteries required for net zero. Michaud noted that the net zero project may not proceed fully as planned. Meanwhile, Menton concluded that in what some might consider unduly charitable, it's hard to avoid the conclusion that the people planning the transition to net zero have no idea what they're doing. Professor Allison has made his calculations based on basic physics and freely available information. Any way you look at it, wind energy is insufficient, he says. And it's intermittent and unreliable, exposed and vulnerable, weak and short-lived, he says, are his conclusions. This is from Banking News. I've translated this for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box.